Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our comp plan and commercial zoning workshop. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Kelly, Mayor Taylor,
Present. All right, as we stand for the invocation, again, the date is October 25th. The time is 6:09. Commissioner Kelly, if you don't mind.
Eternal God, our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for life, health, and strength. We thank you, God, as we come tonight. Give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Do those things which are pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
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 I pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to turn it over into our planning department. Mr. Gay, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commissioner. My name is Gregory Gay, the Director of Planning and Community Development. And the purpose of this workshop is to bring forth information regarding our comprehensive master plan and some considerations for changes as it relates to our zoning code dealing with commercial properties. The first item that we will be bringing forth is the update as it stands for our comprehensive master plan. This is an effort to bring an update and make amendments to our comprehensive master plan. Every 7 or so years, we are required to do this particular update, which is called an evaluation and appraisal report. And as a part of the report, certain amendments may be done in relationship to some of the elements that are a part of the comprehensive master plan. We've been working with the consultant services of Calvin Giordino and Associates as a part of this particular effort. This effort is being led by Mr. Alex David, who unfortunately is not with us today. He had a slight illness and he felt it was better for him not be here, but he is with us virtually. Also working with him is Carla Ebenbach, who is project manager with this particular effort, and Antonio, who is also their GIS specialist. They are here to basically present where they are right now as it relates to the comprehensive master plan update and to show the steps as we go through this particular process. We are anticipating having this whole comprehensive master plan update completed, hopefully by the end of this year, and we'll be going through the final approval processes going into 2024. So we seek to have this completed by that particular time. Now, I know Mr. David is online with us, but I believe that Ms. Carla will be basically taking the lead as it relates to the presentation. So at this time, I present Ms. Carla Ebenbach.
Good evening. My name is Carla Ebenbach. I'm the president of Ebenbach Consulting, which is a sub-consultant to Calvin Giordano Associates. And I'm very pleased to have this time with you to present the status of our work so far on the comprehensive master plan update and get your input on what you hear from us and how we can massage it further for the final draft that you'll be seeing shortly. If we have the slides. One note of apology before I start, which is that we were under the impression for a brief while that we were presenting tonight a workshop for the Planning and Zoning Board. So your handouts may say that at the top, but we have now corrected the slideshow and it is good to go. Mayor Taylor and Commissioner Kelly, again, we're very pleased to be with you, and I did want to fully introduce Antonio Augello, who is an associate at Calvin Giordano Associates as well. We can have the next slide. Antonio is going to be the scribe tonight and write down.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, could they turn the volume a little bit? It's hard to hear, can hardly hear you.
Oh, I apologize. Maybe if I
No,
stand a
no,
little
they
closer.
turn the volume a little bit more, maybe, because I just can't hear you. Okay, thank you.
How's that? Oh,
That's better. That's much
that's
better.
good.
Mhm.
All right. Well, as I was about to say, Antonio is going to take notes, anything that comes up that we might want to consider as a change in the draft. The draft itself is 224 pages. So we're going to just go over highlights tonight so that you can hear about what's been changed in the plan and to draw your attention to those things. We're going to tell you about where we are. So next slide. Just a refresher, we kicked off in December of last year, and Alex presented to the commission in January of this year. We did have a workshop with the Planning and Zoning Board in March, where we got a lot of good feedback, both from the board members and from the public. And since then and now, we've had some briefings with the individual commission members and board members and city staff to collect a variety of information on the challenges, the work in progress in the city. Other good news is that the property rights element was approved at first reading by your body, and we've conducted a variety of research and analysis in the interim to come up with the draft policies that we will be presenting to you. Next slide. We specifically got quite a bit of good information from the commissioners, from the Historic and Environmental Protection Board, Planning and Zoning, the CRA, the 10 North Group, the community, and from Planning and Zoning staff. And the update addresses these issues, as you can see on the screen: sustainability and resilience, property rights, water supply planning, infrastructure, economic development, current and future growth, and it also reflects several Florida statute changes. Next slide. This slide is just an overview of the process, which you're probably fairly familiar with from beginning to end, starting with, public engagement and data collection and moving forward through sort of consolidating the information into an assessment of future demands and opportunities. We are at about we're nearing task 7 now. We are set to present to the Planning and Zoning Board on November 7th, and I believe we're coming back to you in December if we're on the agenda for that. So we're getting to the finish line. Next slide.
Mr. Mayor, before you get too far, the entities or you talked to, you said historic preservation, planning and zoning, the meeting they had there back in said March, I think it says on here, right?
Yep.
Okay, do we get those, that document or whatever they discussed or whatever? Have we gotten that? I thought I saw something prior to maybe in a commission package that alluded to that. Might have been just part of some minutes, something else. If not, we can get that, whatever discussion as it relates to the comp plan.
There's actually 2 items that you have received. The report that was included as a part of the minutes of that particular Planning and Zoning Board meeting, as well as some of the other meetings. But as she has already said, the property rights element has already been proffered forward as a part of an update, because that particular element pretty much met all of the particular requirements, so that can already be proffered up to the state. You've already approved that in first reading, so that has already gone forward, and we anticipate that coming back sometime later in November. And then as
No, I got the property. I wasn't referring to that. I was just talking about it, whatever they discussed. I thought I remember seeing it in some minutes, but I just don't know if we got it separately or was it part of that?
I think it was included
Part of
within
that.
the minutes.
Okay, another thing, the CRA discussion, did that take place with the previous director? Or had there been conversation meetings with the current folks? They have
It was
CRA?
actually during Mr. Delane when he was serving.
Okay,
Yes.
so I would hope, obviously now we've got someone else that you would meet with them or have some kind of dialogue discussion with them regarding what is taking place, so they can kind of be up to breast and give their input, because CRA is taking some different turns, I'll say it like that now. So that may be inclusive or needed to be brought up to speed to be included in this long-term document. I just wanted to say that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. I believe they've already begun to make contact with Mr. Walker,
Mhm.
who's over the CRA with his consultant team. So we will make sure that they communicate
Okay,
together.
just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for advising us to do that. I think we definitely need to have that conversation. So now I'll just quickly overview the proposed changes in each element of the plan. If there's more information on the slide, that means probably there's been more changes to that section. So I'll just, as I say, go over the highlights, and please do stop me if you have any questions. Next slide. The future land use element has been worked on to bring about these changes, which are to create new land use designations that match the map. For example, we have now incorporated low moderate in the plan. It was actually not in the plan before, and we have split up the civic designation into civic, airport, parks, utilities, and water. According to the state statute, we needed to change the planning horizons for it to 2035, 2045. That means that the short-term planning period is 2035 and the long-term 2045. So you'll see a change to the name of the plan on the boards, et cetera. We're putting much more focus on retail, neighborhood uses, and the public realm based on what we heard from all of you. Enhancing and beautifying the downtown, of course, in concert with the recent downtown master plan. Very important input we got on in strengthening developer requirements and incentives for public benefits, enhancing code enforcement strategies. And we touch on housing needs in the future by 2045, historic resources and climate resilience. All the maps in the entire document have been recreated. So they're all brand new. Next slide. In the redevelopment and economic development element, again, we make heavy reference to the 2021 Downtown Master Plan, which was a very helpful document and which suggested many good policies. We reference opportunity zones and brownfield redevelopment. We have some very good guidance about the existing design guidelines and how to strengthen their use in new development. And we've added some new policies regarding displacement due to gentrification. In this element, we're speaking in terms of commercial properties, and we provide draft policy on finding alternative commercial sites for existing property owners and or providing relocation assistance.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Let me ask a couple of questions. When you talk about opportunity zones, are there any new programs or statewide mandates and or funding that specifically target certain areas for opportunity zones?
I would have to research that and get back to you.
Okay, I know years ago in the state, had the whole, what do you call it? It's the way the governor used to get the money to certain areas. We had it right here. Yeah, the empowerment, you had the other one that they used.
Enterprise.
Empowerment. But it's one that one of the governors used because they said that front porch. That's what I'm thinking of. Remember, front porch was a mechanism that they used for getting funding and assistance for certain areas. Yeah, I would be curious or want to know if those exist or opportunities for that. The other thing you said you're doing some, I guess, some research or analysis for alternative commercial sites and relocation assistance. In your analysis or how you're approaching it, are you looking at whole areas? Or are you just looking at individual type of businesses or certain sectors? What's your approach in looking at that?
Our approach to date, and we're happy to talk with you about what you think will be most effective. We were thinking that in areas where a redevelopment project is proposed, the existing commercial property holders, we'd like to retain them as much as possible. So we would offer the option to be involved in those developments if we can put that into developer agreements. That's the kind of thing we were talking about on an individual basis. And so therefore the existing commercial property holders would have to be notified and coordinated with to take advantage of those opportunities.
Okay. All right, so
Commissioner Kelly,
basically it would be on a case by case or project by project basis, not necessarily a sector or a location.
Well, we could look at the other if you want, but if at the moment it's framed with language that talks about individual owners.
No, I'm fine with that. I'm just trying to get a clarity on how what's your focus or how you're thinking in terms of that. In your analysis or your work so far, have you come across a lot of potential gentrification as it relates to redevelopment?
Well, I think this is more so thinking about the future. So if development conditions are good, if we create the conditions for development and it starts coming in, the gentrification could happen, before you get a handle on
not
it.
so much Opa-locka at the moment, but based on your experience, what you've seen happening around even the country, the state, or just in your line of work period, is that something that seems to be on the up?
Oh, yes.
Or whatever?
It is. And with Miami-Dade being a growing county, And lots of dollars, investment, new people in the county. It is quite possible that gentrification could become an issue here. So it's just good to be prepared.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, one question Commissioner Kelly already answered, which is how you was going to approach the business, but you said it's on a case by case basis. Now, the gentrification situation, because I know Opa-locka now, it seems like there's a shift in our commercial. For example, big example, the flea market now is shifting into even a corridor into the more logistic side of things. So that's what this line is. I'm assuming what you mean by that.
You are referring to
Minimize commercial displacement due to gentrification or redevelopment.
well, that could be an example. If that's kind of the dynamic that occurred, if it became unaffordable for that business to continue operating in the new development that's proposed, then they're effectively
So is
prompted to leave.
it
then
an affordability or is it a buyout? You understand what I'm saying, Mr. Gay?
affordability. I think,
Affordability.
is the
So it's
issue.
not really okay.
Yeah, it's about
Okay,
affordability.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Can we go to the next slide? Right, and then in the transportation element, there's a lot of good work going on in the city, but we were encouraging, continued regular resurfacing and restriping of roads where needed, to continue coordinating and improving sidewalks, lighting, street furnishings to create more of a public space, which also, of course, lends itself to development investment. To ensure that all the streets are kept open and connected, no barricades. To upgrade the bicycle and pedestrian facilities, which is important as part of a complete streets effort to make sure that people can get to and from their homes, to transit stations, to shops and restaurants, that kind of thing. So that's a very connected city at all levels of transportation. And on that note, so there are different forms of micromobility that could be introduced with private vendors in the city. Parking has come to our attention as a hot topic in Opa-locka. And so we added an entire objective related to parking in order to ensure that there are innovative and flexible approaches and solutions, which also take into consideration the potential increased use of transit when the metro rail station comes, when there are better physical connections to the stations, Tri-Rail and Metro Rail. With future redevelopment, perhaps there will be, less of a need for parking. Obviously, coordination with that downtown redevelopment effort and with transit-oriented development. And we also propose a transition for the municipal fleet to electric vehicles when possible, when feasible, if the use of the vehicle and the price are manageable, or alternative fuels. Next slide. As you can see, quite a few more things on this slide, so I'll just go over quickly. But again, we addressed the potential gentrification issue in the housing element, providing for relocation assistance and optimally to retain residents through providing for the first option to rent or buy in new developments. Looking at neighborhood design and remembering that the aspects of how a neighborhood appears physically has a lot to do with the social outcomes, and that we're trying to promote health through neighborhood design. We want to protect historically significant housing as well as culturally and architecturally significant housing. We have a number of policies related to that. Related as well to energy efficiency of housing units and reducing carbon emissions with future use of green standards in the city. We propose that the city consider the adoption of an inclusionary zoning ordinance, which would mandate the integration of affordable or workforce housing units in the proposed development. There is, based on the research we did, there's going to be a substantial need for affordable housing going forward in the future with some population growth. And it's important to think about the different levels of affordability needed and how to accommodate that and how best to get the development industry to be a partner in creating it.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned about, and I totally agree with the inclusionary challenges of housing that's taking place. What has been your experience, or especially a city of our size, and really dealing with that? I mean, passing laws obviously is what, the ultimate. But I've seen some places that have passed the laws, but still had major challenges trying to actually get it implemented and or to get developers and or folks to really buy into it. Have you seen any models, areas, what have you, that you could offer us any insight as to going about that?
There are some areas of West Palm Beach that you could look at. I'm currently working on another project there to promote redevelopment of the Broadway corridor. And there are other sections of West Palm Beach that have been looked at, for example, to create inclusion and affordability in the new development. So while they had updated their code to be more attractive to development, at the same time, they created incentives to include affordable housing. That's a pretty good example to look at. And obviously the inclusionary zoning is something that makes it mandatory. So that's a different picture. And it would be worth further study to understand how that would align with getting development to come in.
And I also noticed you have, I know you haven't got the 10 North and the city departments have capacity to address housing needs. I know in our city, our department staff is not really housing intensive or housing structured. And that's one reason why I asked you the question about other areas in the West Palm Beach, though it's probably has more resources. Is that your thinking, more just adding someone into it, or just adding the mindset that that department needs more people and or focus on addressing the housing needs? And the other part, it says 10 North and city department. So I was kind of curious, why is 10 North there in that statement like that?
We'll just answer that one first. It seems that 10 North's purpose is to assist residents in the area with concerns around housing. So it seemed that they are a partner. But in answer to your first question, I think that it's really all of the above, because it's really ideally would be a working partnership between policy and the laws in place, and also the mindset in the city as becoming more coordinated to address these needs for the city to attract development, as well as accommodate its residents with affordable housing. It's in a sense, it requires a bit of an overhaul of thinking about how to have departments work together. But it is certainly doable, and policy and regulations can back that up.
Thank you.
So to Commissioner, I don't know if this is what he was meaning, but I'm gonna ask this question. I'm assuming that you're trying to say public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
Because us as a city that do not have the infrastructure or capacity to take on this heavy lift as it relates to housing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I was wondering why that particular name was that. Okay.
Yeah, but there are other partners that you could probably enlist to assist in this process from outside.
Yeah, that's why I said that, because I know they do housing. I'm not knocking that, but there are other entities out there who are doing housing or, around the city or whatever. So I just don't want it to be limited to just them. It needs to be inclusive of any
All
other
developers.
entities that might be out there too,
Right.
in addressing housing. Okay, all right, thank you.
I think the key thing is, development can undo your objectives with affordable housing. So it's just important that they be worked on at the same time and, in tandem. Okay, if no other questions in this area just now, we'll go to the next slide. Infrastructure and aquifer recharge element. We updated several of the levels of service to be in line with the providers, Miami-Dade counties, sewer, water, fire, solid waste, and we amended the park's level of service, which I will get to in a moment. Next slide. And the conservation element, which of course concerns all aspects of our natural environment in which we live. We proposed policy to add more native tree canopy. I know the city's already working on that in public areas and streets. To continue upgrading the aged city water pipes to minimize the system water losses, which are quite significant. To implement more storm water drainage projects and inspection routines so that, we keep an eye on the flooding in the city. There are some areas that chronically flood and need attention. Obviously the conversion of septic tanks to sewer is a good objective.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Mr. Gage, what's the percentage of septic tanks in the city of Opa-locka? We have a large percentage? I know the county is doing that program of conversion as we speak.
Yes, as it relates to facilities within the city of Opa-locka's boundaries itself, it is about less than 7 or 8% that are still on septic. But at the same time, because our service area goes beyond the city limits, there are other areas outside of the city of Opa-locka that we service that have septic problems as well.
I know that Bunch
So-
Park area, I know specifically is a septic tank, but
Yes.
it's in the city limits, you said about 7%?
We're about 7%,
Okay,
according to what I've been told through Public Works. That's the number.
and
we're
we
looking
can
at.
identify those addresses?
Yes, some of them are actually within the industrial areas of the city. I don't know if there's any residential.
That was my next question.
That was a part of that. But I think from my understanding, the ones that are on septic
Or more commercial.
are more commercial and industrial.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gage.
If I'm not mistaken too, I believe there's a new state requirement to convert all septic
Yes.
to sewer by 2030.
Yeah,
Yeah. Some other items under conservation would be promoting redevelopment of identified brownfields sites and taking advantage of assistance from outside agencies in doing so. Promoting green building standards in your development code, and addressing energy conservation and working on flooding mitigation efforts. We noticed that the vegetative buffer specifications in the code are a little bit confusing and could be more robust. So we recommend strengthening those. It also has come to our attention in talking with city staff and others that Lake Ingram is really a unique resource in the city and worthy of preservation and celebration. And so in keeping in concert with the park improvements that are going on there, to think about that as a really vital natural resource that's available to the community. And along the lines of the electric vehicle conversation of earlier, starting to provide charging infrastructure incentives so that developers that come in help provide that infrastructure as the general community starts to convert to using more electric vehicles. Any questions? Okay, if not, we'll move on to recreation and open space. As I mentioned earlier, we revisited the level of service standard for parks and changed it from a 1/4 mile to a 1/2 mile of residential areas. We noticed that it wasn't possible to meet the level of service at the previous standard. So we've changed it to a 1/2 mile. And meanwhile, tried to think of a variety of ways the city could increase the amount of park space that it has for its community. Number one would be, obvious, bonus development incentives to developers for providing park space. And in the process, we'd like to see the inventory and distribution of park grounds and facilities increased. Thinking perhaps of pocket parks as one solution in neighborhoods to create a green space that's available and close by to residents. And definitely prioritizing residential areas where park space is lacking.
Would passive parks work in this?
That all would count towards the total acreage. So,
Okay.
yep, any kind of park. Plus, we heard a lot of conversation in our interviews about the need for equipment and facilities to serve different age groups in the city, to provide programming that is suited to the youth, to the silver sneakers, and have more opportunities to use the parks for everybody. So we're including policy about programming to bring in as needed, perhaps an outside group to assist with programming and make that more of a resource for the community. To inventory all of your park space, we added Glorietta and Butterfly Garden Parks to the parks map. So that's new. Any questions about the parks?
Mr. Gay, Glorietta and the Butterfly Garden, why didn't we add Kaboom?
Part of the reason that we don't have Kaboom officially as a city park is based on the ownership. Part of the park is under private ownership, part of the park is under public ownership. And we wanted to basically unify that all once together and have it under one park folio number. Therefore, we can basically do the land use change as well as the zoning change for that.
Okay, thank you.
Do we consider Coachman Gardens as a part of our park spacing for the purpose of, because when I look at Butterfly Garden, Coachman Gardens is not much too different other than the fact of the butterfly element. Is that included as part of our count or park spacing?
And that's actually a pocket park.
It has not
It is-
been
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's a
I would
pocket park,
consider it
yeah.
a pocket park,
correct.
but I don't think we list it as one. So that's
We
what I'm
do
asking,
not.
have they, is that part of what they have looked at to maybe consider as a, I want to say model of a potential pocket park? Because to me, that's what that is.
We are looking at it from that perspective. There are several areas that are considered open space that we have not designated them as a park or as a open space opportunity. So as a part of this particular exercise, we'll be looking at bringing that.
So I would hope definitely that would be included, just like it says you're including the butterfly garden to the map. To me, that ought to be added to the map too. I understand Kaboom because that's got to figure out who owns what, but Coachman Garden is pretty clear. That's ours, et cetera. So I hope we can, whatever it takes to add that to the maps.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem.
Yeah, we'll take care of adding that to the map. All right. If nothing else on that, we'll move on to next slide, public schools and education element. The changes with that are more policies promoting partnering with universities. We think that that's especially important for job training and preparation needs in the city, and promoting environmental education, understanding of resilience principles in K through 12. And the schools map series has been updated as well. Next slide. Next slide is intergovernmental coordination element. We've not changed a lot in this element, just added some agencies that the city coordinates with, such as Miami-Dade County and the South Florida Water Management District. Next slide. Capital improvements. One important addition to this is an addition of policy that requires that when the city's constructing capital infrastructure, that there be an action plan and that it provide clear project schedules, a process for monitoring the progress, and for regular updates to be provided among departments and back and forth between the commission and the city staff. And we have also cleaned up the level of service table to match the standards of service providers such as water and sewer.
And I would hope, Mr. Mayor, I would hope, providing your regular updates, also maybe another comma, say after completion as well.
Okay,
Because a lot of times, it finishes, but because of the develop agreement, sometimes things supposed to be going 6 months later on landscaping or things supposed to do, and that seems to get lost. As soon as we finish, it's open or whatever, it's like it's forgotten. So we need to make sure we include that kind of language in whatever policy that would be added. So we can just put that in there, that would be great too.
will do.
Thank you.
And absolutely also monitoring the outcomes of the development projects will be in there to see if the developer has followed through on what you have requested of them. Next slide. Next slide is a property rights element, which Mr. Gay already alluded to. It's a new element that we have created to comply with the Florida statutes, and it has its own goal, objective, and policies that ensures that a property owner maintains the right to use, maintain, develop, and improve his or her property. Next slide. We are almost near the end here. In fact, we are practically at the end. So just to review what some of our next steps will be, we'll love to hear your any more input you have now to help us make this the best plan it can be. We'll be presenting the draft to the Planning and Zoning Board for review and transmittal back to you, the commission, in November 7th. And then this body, the City Commission, will have the opportunity to review it at first reading in December, whichever date is chosen for the, actually, I think it's December 13th. The plan will be on the agenda that month. And then if it's approved, it'll be submitted to the state and other agencies for review. And then there's that 60-day review period. So once that occurs, the commission will get to review the plan again at the adoption hearing, which we estimate might be in March or April of 2024.
The only thing that I asked that you add in here, City Commission will review first reading.
Yep.
After the transmittal to City Commission, that you again schedule individual meetings to go over it with well, give it to us first and allow us to, that way we can get an understanding and
Okay,
ask any questions direct before we come up to first reading. And just in case we have any
that's a good
tweaks
idea.
or,
Mhm. Yep.
That's my suggestion.
That's a great suggestion. And the last slide, it just has our contact info, and just a huge thank you for your time tonight and your interest in trying to make this plan serve the city as best it can. But if you have any questions or other thoughts right now, we'll be glad to answer.
I don't have any questions, but I'm gonna yield to my colleagues. Do you have any questions? Okay, so I do want to say thank you for all of the hard work. And I actually look forward to seeing this plan implemented. And I'm really excited. Anyone else? All right. Mr. Gay,
Thank you.
did you want to close out before we motion to adjourn and recess for our next meeting?
Yes, really like to thank the commission for being a part of this particular exercise. I know that we did have another item that's on the agenda. We'll reschedule that one so that we'll have ample time to go over the zoning changes being proposed as it relates to commercial zoning and where commercial businesses are being placed within the city. So we will follow up with that and schedule another workshop sometime maybe in November, but if it doesn't hit November, it may end up being next year.
Can you provide that document to the commission?
Yes, sir.
That would be all on the same page. All right,
Okay.
thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Commissioner.
No problem.
Motion adjourned.
Move it. Can I get a second?
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Kelly, Madam Clerk, moved by Commissioner Kelly, second by Vice Mayor. This meeting is adjourned.